When a town was destroyed from below, it began with a sound, a low, rumbling echo that rolled through the empty streets of Ravenshollow, a quiet little mining town surrounded by endless forests and forgotten hills. At first, people thought it was thunder, but moments later, the ground started to tremble. The mayor told everyone to stay calm, saying it was just a small quake. But by midnight, thin black cracks had already started crawling across the streets, cracks that seemed to breathe. By morning, the old well in the town square had caved in, revealing a pit of pure darkness. From inside came the smell of rotting earth, and something alive. Miners who went down to inspect it never came back. Those who dared to look said they saw movement, something massive shifting beneath the ground, like a living creature waiting to rise. 3 nights later, the church bell rang by itself. No one was in the tower. Then came the whispers. People began hearing voices beneath their floors, soft at first, then clearer. "Let us out! Let us out!" Dogs howled all night long. Chickens died in their coops. And when dawn came, the entire east side of Ravenshollow was gone, swallowed by a gaping sinkhole. Survivors said they saw hands, pale and clawed, reaching up from the dirt before disappearing again. By the time rescue teams arrived, the town had vanished completely. Nothing remained but a massive crater, and at its center, the church bell still stood, swaying gently, ringing softly. Though there was no wind, no one rebuilt Ravenshollow. But locals say if you go there at night and press your ear to the ground, you can still hear them whispering, the ones who were destroyed from below. 20 years after Ravenshollow vanished, the forest had swallowed what was left. No map showed its location anymore. No one spoke its name, until a small expedition team from a local university decided to uncover the truth. They called it Project Hollow. There were 5 of them. Dr. Miles Carter, a geologist obsessed with underground phenomena. Evelyn Shaw, a journalist documenting unsolved disappearances. And 3 assistants, Leo, Hannah, and Simon. They arrived just before sunset, guided by an old hunter who refused to go past the tree line. Before leaving, he muttered, "If you hear the bell, don't move." The team laughed nervously. Then they stepped into the overgrown path that once led to the town. By nightfall, they found it. A wide crater, silent and cold, with the remains of houses buried in dirt. At the center stood the church bell tower, exactly as the legend said. Miles began scanning the area with his seismic detector. The readings spiked immediately. Something massive was still moving underground. Evelyn recorded everything, whispering into her camera. No birds, no insects. Even the wind feels dead here. Then, without warning, the bell rang. A single deep toll. The sound echoed through the forest like a heartbeat. Leo turned pale. There's no way the bell can still work. Look, the rope's gone. And then came the whisper, faint, but unmistakable. From the ground all around them, "Let us out." The earth trembled beneath their feet. Miles shouted for everyone to run, but Hannah was already frozen in place, staring at the ground where a pale hand was reaching out of the soil, clawing toward her ankle. The camera fell, landing sideways. All that could be seen was the shadow of the bell tower, swaying slowly. As the ground began to open once again, the footage recovered from Project Hollow ended abruptly, a blur of soil, screams, and the faint echo of a bell. But 3 days later, a distress signal was picked up from deep within the Ravenshollow forest. It was Evelyn Shaw's voice. "This is Evelyn. If anyone hears this, we're trapped. Miles is gone. Something's under us. Static." It sounds like breathing. The rescue team found her recorder half buried near the crater, but there was no sign of Evelyn. Only footprints, small, deep, and not human, leading toward the church bell. Inside the collapsed tower, they found fragments of the expedition's equipment and a hand-drawn map, marked with circles and notes in Dr. Miles Carter's handwriting. The tunnels breathe. Voices follow seismic frequency. Something alive down there. At the bottom of the page, written in shaky ink, were the words, "It's not the ground that swallows. It's them pulling from below." The investigators who handled the evidence swore that after touching the recorder, They could still hear faint whispers through their radios late at night. One technician claimed the bell sound appeared in his headset, even though the tape had already been destroyed. He quit the next morning, saying, "It wasn't a recording. It was answering me." No one ever entered Ravenshollow again. But the forest kept growing, covering the crater inch by inch, as if trying to bury something that still moves beneath it. And every year, on the same night Project Hollow disappeared, the bell rings once, long, deep, and hollow, echoing through the empty trees, as if the earth itself is calling for more. 15 years after the disappearance of Project Hollow, the legend of Ravenshollow had become nothing more than an internet myth. But for Dr. Elias Monroe, a geophysicist obsessed with underground phenomena, it was unfinished business. He had grown up hearing the story how an entire town vanished overnight, how the ground itself seemed alive. Now, with new scanning technology and a team of specialists, he was determined to find what was buried beneath. The expedition began at dawn. Using ground-penetrating radar, they found a massive hollow network beneath the forest floor. Tunnels stretching for miles, perfectly circular, as if carved by something not human. At the center of it all, a pulse, a faint rhythmic vibration, like a heartbeat. The team drilled a small opening into one of the tunnels. The air that escaped was cold, stale, and filled with the smell of rot. Elias switched on his flashlight and descended first. The walls of the tunnel weren't made of soil or stone. They were smooth, lined with strange spiral patterns that seemed to twist when the light hit them. "These aren't natural formations," he muttered. "They look like veins." The deeper they went, the stronger the pulse became. It wasn't coming from the ground, it was coming from below it. Then the radio started to crackle. At first, just static. Then, a voice. "Elias, turn back." It was Evelyn Shaw's voice. The same voice from the Project Hollow recording, clear, alive, terrified. "They're awake." The tunnel shook violently. The ground split beneath their feet. And from the walls, something began to emerge. Pale, skeletal hands pressing outward through the layers of dirt and flesh-like stone. The light flickered. Someone screamed. And then the feed went dead. All that was recovered from Elias's expedition was a single audio file, recorded automatically on his field computer. In the background, the faint toll of a bell can be heard, followed by breathing, and a whisper that chills the air. "You opened the heart." Elias Monroe woke up in the dark. His head was bleeding, his flashlight shattered, and the air around him was thick wet like he was breathing through cloth. The last thing he remembered was the tunnel collapsing, and those hands. He called out, but no one answered. The echo didn't sound right. It came back delayed, as if the walls themselves were whispering his voice back to him. He switched on his backup light. He wasn't in the tunnel anymore. The space around him was enormous, a cavern shaped like a ribcage, and it was moving. Slow, rhythmic, expanding, contracting. Each pulse made the ground tremble beneath him. It wasn't rock. It wasn't dirt. It was flesh. Elias stumbled forward, his boots sticking to the floor like it was breathing underfoot. He pointed his camera toward the center of the chamber, and froze. There was something there. A gigantic organic mass pulsing slowly, covered in root-like veins that glowed faintly red. It looked like a heart big enough to fill the entire cavern. And from within it came faces, dozens of them screaming silently, pressing against the surface as if trying to escape from inside. Some were old, some looked like his team. "Elias." The voice came from behind him. He turned. Evelyn Shaw stood there, or what was left of her. Her skin was gray, eyes hollow, her mouth trembling as if she was forcing each word out. "You shouldn't have opened it?" The cavern began to pulse faster. The light grew redder. The walls started to breathe harder, louder, like something waking up. Elias tried to run, but the ground beneath him rippled. Hands burst from below, grabbing his legs, pulling him down. The last thing he saw was the great heart splitting open, revealing an abyss of teeth and light. Then everything went black. When the university analyzed the data from Elias's last transmission, they detected something strange. a sound beneath the static, like a deep, slow heartbeat. But when they played it through a spectrogram, it formed a shape, not random, not human, a symbol, and beneath it, in faint, distorted text, were three words repeated over and over: "We are below." 2 weeks after Dr. Elias Monroe's disappearance, a strange frequency began spreading across radio stations all over the world. At first, it was dismissed as interference, a low, steady rhythm repeating every few seconds. But audio technicians noticed something disturbing. Every time the pulse played, the ground sensors near old mining sites began to vibrate. Governments denied any connection. But the internet noticed faster. Clips started appearing on forums and YouTube channels, recordings of people who accidentally picked up the signal. Each video ended the same way, the camera shaking violently, a muffled thud, and silence, followed by that same sound. But like a heartbeat. One of the videos came from a teenager in Oregon. He said his speakers started breathing. When investigators arrived, they found his room empty. Walls cracked open from the inside, the floor soft and warm to the touch. Another case appeared in Japan. A subway tunnel closed after passengers reported hearing whispers under the tracks, repeating in English, "We are below." Engineers sent a drone to inspect the tunnel. The feed lasted 8 minutes. Then, in the darkness, a massive shape moved across the camera. Something that blinked, but the eye was the size of a train door. The connection cut. By now, scientists had traced the frequency back to a single point, the coordinates of Ravenshollow. When they compared the sound waves of the pulse to Elias's last transmission, the results were identical. Whatever he found beneath the earth, it was still alive. And now, it was calling. At 3:17 a.m. the following night, the pulse reached its loudest frequency ever recorded. In multiple countries, the ground trembled at the exact same time. Streetlights flickered. Cell phones glowed red before shutting off. And then, from deep beneath the earth, came a sound that hadn't been heard in decades. A bell? Ringing once. Long, slow, hollow. The heartbeat stopped for exactly 1 minute. Then the world began to breathe. At first, no one noticed. The pulse had stopped, and the world thought it was over. But doctors across several countries began reporting something strange. Patients who had heard the signal before it vanished, people who claimed to feel the earth breathing, their heartbeats were no longer normal. They were in sync. All of them. Every beat matching perfectly, as if something invisible was keeping time inside their chests. When hospitals tried to measure the frequency, they realized it matched the old Ravenshollow pulse, the same rhythm that came from below. Meanwhile, in small towns near the original crater, residents began hearing noises under their floors again. Thuds, whispers, like something moving just beneath the foundation. A farmer in West Virginia recorded it. In the video, his house shakes slightly as the sound grows louder, then stops. The last frame shows the ground rising, as if something underneath took a breath. He disappeared the next day. Seismic readings showed new hollow zones forming beneath major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Jakarta, each one pulsing faintly, as if connected by an unseen network spreading through the planet's crust. Geologists tried to explain it, but every test came back the same. The material beneath the surface was organic, alive. Then on live television, during a news broadcast about the phenomenon, the anchor suddenly froze mid-sentence. Her microphone picked up a low whisper. "The heart remembers." Blood began to drip from her nose. She smiled too wide and whispered back, "We are awake." The feed cut. That night, satellites captured a strange heat signature across the globe. Lines of faint, glowing red spreading through continents like veins. And somewhere deep below Ravenshollow, the great heart began to beat again, faster, stronger, louder. Every time it pulsed, millions of people felt it in their own chests. And for the first time in history, the world breathed together. The world didn't end with an explosion. It ended with a heartbeat. The sky turned crimson for 7 minutes. During that time, every living being from the smallest insect to the oldest human, froze. Their hearts stopped. And then they all started again, but not their hearts. Something else was beating inside them. Governments collapsed in days. No one could explain why the oceans had turned dark, why the moon now pulsed faintly like a dying ember, or why whispers could be heard in every radio frequency. In the ruins of Ravenshollow, where it had all begun, a single figure walked across the scorched ground. Dr. Evelyn Grant. She had returned to where her research first uncovered, the ancient structure beneath the earth. Except now it wasn't underground anymore. The land had cracked open, and something massive had emerged. A colossal heart, the size of a mountain, pulsing slowly, rhythmically, its surface made of stone, flesh, and faces. Human faces. Millions of them. Every beat echoed through Evelyn's chest like thunder. She clutched her recorder, still working somehow, and whispered, "It wasn't a city that was destroyed. It was a womb. And we were the children inside." As she spoke, the ground trembled again. From the horizon, shapes began to rise. Not buildings, but veins, stretching across continents like glowing roots. They pulsed with the same rhythm. And then, from every corner of the earth, people began to walk, their eyes blank, glowing faint red, their steps in perfect sync with the pulse. The new world had begun. Evelyn fell to her knees, tears mixing with ash. She could hear the whisper again, not from the ground this time, but from within her own chest. "Do not fear. You were never separate. You were always part of the heart." As her vision faded, she smiled through the pain. The last thing she saw was the sun bleeding into the horizon, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. And then silence. The final pulse echoed once, then stopped. The world was still, and somewhere in that stillness, something new began to breathe. The end. When a town was destroyed from below, the heart still beats.